Hey y'all. So, last episode, we got several big reveals and were introduced to a very interesting group of characters. We met the rest of Se-gye's incredibly pompous family. Mun-do was officially established as our main villain and the reincarnation of the corrupt king from the past. Dan-shim continued trying to navigate life as Shinsori, and Se-gye spent most of his time trying to figure out who was sabotaging him at every turn. So let's pick up right where episode 2 left off and dive into episode 3. This episode opens back in the past with Dan-shim standing on top of a pavilion, or the top of the palace. She's getting a little payback against the girls who hazed her last episode. You know, the girls who locked her in that trunk. Yeah, she hasn't forgotten. While she's carrying out her revenge, past Se-gye is busy fighting off assassins sent to kill him. So right now, Se-gye in this era is just going to be called past Se-gye until they give us a name. As he's escaping, he spots Dan-shim on top of the roof and immediately assumes she's just another spy. Without hesitation, this man actually shoots her with an arrow. Thankfully, she survives long enough to explain that she's definitely not one of the king's spies. She's just trying to get revenge on the girls who tortured her. That's when the two recognize each other. She's the same court lady he rescued from the trunk. After realizing she isn't a threat, Se-gye tells her to return to her quarters because it's dangerous to be wandering around at night. And this is where I really started noticing one of my favorite themes in this drama so far. History is repeating itself. Think about it, we see a pattern of Dan-shim's past life lining up with her present life. In the present, Se-gye saves Dan-shim from being hit by a car. In the past, he saves her from that wooden trunk. In the past, people are constantly trying to kill Se-gye because of the corrupt king. In the present, someone is constantly trying to ruin his reputation and destroy everything he's building, with Mun-do pulling the strings behind the scenes. In the present, Se-gye accuses Dan-shim of setting up the construction dummy that crashed onto his car, or at least being involved with it somehow. In the past, he accuses her of being a spy. Both times, she has to convince him she's innocent. In the past, she eventually becomes his court lady. In the present, she signs with his company. Everything keeps lining up. These two really do seem destined to find each other in every lifetime. Since Dan-shim actually lived through these events once before, I'm really hoping she'll eventually recognize the parallels and stay one step ahead of whatever Mun-do is planning this time around. At this point, Mun-do is officially the common denominator behind everything going wrong in Se-gye's life. This man listens in on his conversations, follows him around, plants people inside his company, and sabotages everything or anything Se-gye tries to build. Episode 3 finally shows us where all of this started. So I'm going to begin with this flashback they give us actually in the middle of the episode. So we get a childhood flashback where young Mun-do moves in with Chairman Cha and Se-gye, or maybe it's the other way around. All that matters though is that Mun-do and Se-gye are meeting for the very first time. So in order to connect with Mun-do, little Se-gye walks over carrying a glass bowl of cookies, trying to just be buddy-buddy with Mun-do. He even calls him brother. But Mun-do responds very coldly, despite the warm greeting he gave to Se-gye much earlier in the episode. But given in that situation he was in front of the grandfather, so he's probably just, acting in that moment. So the moment they hear Chairman Cha coming up the stairs, Mun-do smacks the glass bowl out of Se-gye's hands, leaving it shattered on the floor. Then he intentionally steps on the broken glass to give himself an injury. And then when Chairman Cha walks in, Mun-do acts innocent and claims he was just trying to make friends, insinuating that Se-gye smacked the bowl out of his hands or at least threw it on the floor intentionally. And what does Chairman Cha do? He immediately slaps Se-gye across the face. No questions, no investigation, nothing. And I'm just sitting here horrified at the entire exchange. But at least we understand why Se-gye grew up being treated like the family screw-up. Mun-do has been manipulating everyone around him since they were children. Back in the present, we pick up exactly where episode 2 ended. So we're back towards the beginning of the episode. I just felt like I had to state everything about Mun-do first, so that way it'd be easier to talk about his hand in everything throughout the episode. So anyway, Dan-shim suddenly hugs Se-gye and asks him to be her shield for just a moment. So this is where they were on the roof. Right then, Mun-do walks onto the rooftop, and of course he immediately assumes they're dating. Se-gye looks completely uncomfortable, while Mun-do quietly stores that information away for later. And sure enough, later in the episode, Mun-do casually tells Chairman Cha that Se-gye has a girlfriend. Just like that, he planted another seed. Chairman Cha then questions Se-gye's assistant, Jae-hyun, and Jae-hyun is completely baffled about why he's even asking about this. And he tells the grandfather Se-gye doesn't have a girlfriend, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's such a small interaction, but it perfectly shows how Mun-do manipulates people. He doesn't always attack directly. Sometimes he just whispers something into the right person's ear and lets the chaos unfold. Things get much worse when Se-gye receives a call about Kaiserman Capital. So this investment company has been funding Byeoljae's new brand launch, but there's one huge problem. Kaiserman is heavily connected to Mun-do's company, Sheo E&C. Se-gye, finding out all this information, holds an emergency board meeting and discovers that the investment deal is basically a trap. So the conversion price is set at 50,000 won. And as long as Byeoljae's stock stays at 50,000 won or above, everything is fine. But if it falls below 50,000, Kaiserman can renegotiate the deal, demand repayment with interest, and potentially take control of everything. It's basically a financial time bomb waiting to explode. And then we learn something even worse. Someone inside Byeoljae has been leaking company information to Mun-do. There's a snake hiding inside Se-gye's own team. I knew from the beginning that everything happening to Se-gye felt way too coordinated to be random. And now we know why. Mun-do has been orchestrating this seemingly for a very long time. Even worse, during their conversation, Mun-do and the snake, they reveal that Dan-shim is about to become another pawn in Mun-do's plans. What I still don't understand is why. Se-gye already has a terrible public reputation. He's struggling to keep his startup in good social standing. He's constantly under attack. How much more does Mun-do want him to suffer? Is this really all because he can't stand sharing attention with Se-gye? Because if so, this is some next level obsession. Later, Se-gye confronts Mun-do directly about Kaiserman and tells him to stay out of his business. Mun-do, of course, responds with his usual smug attitude and starts taunting him. Se-gye barely reacts. He seems exhausted more than anything. This confrontation also leads into the childhood flashback that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And this also gives context as to why Se-gye just looks fed up at this point. Let's talk about our main couple, because Se-gye is absolutely starting to catch feelings. At first I didn't really see it, because of course it's the first 2 episodes, and in the last 2 episodes he seemed more annoyed by her than anything, but this episode seems a whole lot different. So when Dan-shim gets carsick, he pulls over at a gas station to buy medicine and water for her, and the funniest part is watching him argue with himself before buying it. He's just standing there at the medicine cabinet like, do I really want to do this? But eventually his conscience wins, when the gas station attendant mistakes Dan-shim for being Se-gye's girlfriend and hands her his credit card. And instead of her just returning it to Se-gye, because she doesn't know what a credit card is, she happily goes off with it, and later in the episode she buys street food. The reason that she leaves the car is because she finds out that Mun-do and Se-gye are connected from watching like a news broadcast on a TV screen at the gas station. So she thinks it would be better to create space between her and Se-gye, so she decides to wander off. Se-gye sees the charges made on his account and tracks her down to get his card back. And she somehow convinces him to take her out to dinner by staring longingly into his eyes. It's such like a small gesture, but it says a lot about his character. He saw that she was eating nothing but street food, and he took her out to eat. Again, begrudgingly, but he still did it. Another thing that happens in this episode is later, Dan-shim finally gets the opportunity to sign with Se-gye's company. But unfortunately, her current company refuses to let her go because reasons, I guess. So what does Se-gye do? He literally buys out the company just so he can sign Dan-shim. Yes, he does the extreme just to have her sign with his company. Problem solved. So let's get to that director that I was referring to a minute ago. He had the audacity to accuse both Dan-shim and Se-gye of assault. So they're in this stairwell, and Dan-shim thinks the only solution is to pretend to faint in Se-gye's arms. And the two of them, Se-gye and Dan-shim, make a clean getaway. Meanwhile, let's go on a side quest this episode. Apartment Karen, yes, I'm still calling him that, goes on a date with his girlfriend, Mina. Yes, somehow he has a girlfriend. Only for her to break up with him very cruelly and also announce she's marrying another man named Jin Kyung-soo. Poor guy gets his heart completely shattered. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I love seeing Se-gye slowly lower his guard around Dan-shim, and I thought the parallels between the past and the present were one of the strongest parts of the episode. The Mun-do flashback also answered a huge question I've seen since episode 1. Turns out he's been obsessed with ruining Se-gye's life since they were kids, and that somehow makes him even more terrifying. As for Apartment Karen, I never thought I'd say this, but he's actually starting to grow on me. Every scene between him and Dan-shim gives off chaotic sibling energy, and I'm surprisingly enjoying it. But let me know what you think. Do you think Mun-do genuinely hates Se-gye, or is there another reason behind his obsession that we haven't seen yet? If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next episode recap, which is episode 4. Let's move on to episode 4. By the end of episode 3, Se-gye had officially started lowering his guard around Dan-shim. Mun-do's obsession with ruining his cousin's life was becoming impossible to ignore, and Dan-shim had finally signed with Byoje. For a second, it looked like things might finally settle down. Yeah, that doesn't last very long. Episode 4 shifts gears from corporate sabotage to relationship building, but don't let that fool you. Mun-do is already finding new ways to manipulate everyone around him. Dan-shim keeps stumbling into misunderstandings that somehow make Se-gye fall even harder, and the parallels between the past and present continue to get stronger. So let's jump right into episode 4. This episode opens with Dan-shim and Se-gye shaking hands as she officially signs with his company. Considering everything she went through just to get here, it feels like a huge win. Unfortunately, this drama doesn't let anyone enjoy their victories for very long. The former director, yes, it's the same annoying director from before, is still obsessed with getting revenge on Dan-shim. He actually files a lawsuit claiming she injured his arm. Dan-shim isn't about to sit there and take it though. She immediately countersues him for the unpaid wages he still owes her. Now here's where Mun-do enters the picture. Somehow he catches wind of everything happening and has already connected to the director before this happens. So the director even puts a fake cast on his arm to make his injuries seem more legitimate, or to seem a lot worse than it really is. So the whole lawsuit wasn't really about winning, it was bait. While everything is unfolding at the police station, Se-gye gets a call from Jae-hyun telling him that he and Dan-shim are being sued. Without hesitation, he rushes over and acts as her lawyer. Once everything settles down, for now anyway, the director immediately reports back to Mun-do, so he hobbles his way over to Mun-do to let him know everything that happened. And this is where we find out that this is all a setup. Mission accomplished. Mun-do now knows two very important things. First, Se-gye and Dan-shim are connected in some way. Second, Se-gye genuinely cares about her. Meanwhile, Apartment Karen and the landlord accidentally convince Dan-shim that Se-gye must secretly be her fan. And the reason she concludes this is based on how he's been acting around her as of late. Always being concerned about her, looking out for her, so she misinterprets this as being a fan. It's just her learning a new term in modern times and kind of using it in the wrong context. So, wanting to thank him, she writes him a heartfelt letter because she learns that this is something that some people do for their fans. But the problem is, Se-gye reads it and immediately assumes she's confessing her feelings. So now he's spiraling because he assumes that she has a crush on him when it's not really her having a crush, it's just her misinterpreting a modern term that she's never used before. But watching him trying to process his emotions was hilarious, and this man cannot decide whether he's annoyed, confused, or secretly happy. On the way home, Dan-shim finds an adorable little puppy following her. At first, she's determined not to get attached to it, so she keeps shooing it away because she doesn't want anything to do with the puppy. But, of course, she eventually caves. Since she's not really in a position to take care of it, she hands it over to Se-gye, assuming he has the resources to take care of it, not knowing that Se-gye is allergic to dogs. So poor guy immediately calls Jae-hyun for help because he's annoyed about the whole situation. He also gets terrified of the thought of Dan-shim finding out he's getting rid of it. But thankfully, Jae-hyun tracks down the puppy's actual owner and reunites them together. Now Se-gye just has to figure out how to explain all of this to Dan-shim without her getting angry. Dan-shim has lunch with Ji-hyo and their manager. During lunch, she's told that a director wants her to appear in season 2 of Kingdom of Women. The director wants her to be a part of season 2. She's also informed she'll be doing an interview soon, which means she needs to start preparing immediately. Cue Dan-shim binge watching dramas to learn everything she can. What stood out to me though was how differently the manager treated her in the lunch. The second Dan-shim starts gaining opportunities and important connections, suddenly she's worthy of this manager's respect, when before, the manager did everything she could to belittle her, disrespect her, and make her feel small. It's like, really? Now you want to act like a decent human being? Dan-shim moves into a rooftop apartment. She gets a little extra money from signing on to Se-gye's company. The first place she wants to stay at is a rooftop, apparently. I guess, girl, if getting rained on is your dream, who am I to judge? Thinking Se-gye still has the puppy, she even builds a cute little dog house for the dog. It's too cute. Meanwhile, the puppy, unfortunately, is already gone. So Se-gye's family, the Cha family, gathers for the opening of a resort that's been built. Things are tense enough already, and then Mun-do decides to cross a line, and he makes a snarky comment about Se-gye's worth as a person and says something about his mother. Se-gye immediately punches him, and honestly, it was deserved. Someone had to do it. I seriously cannot stand Mun-do. Every time he appears on screen, he somehow becomes even more smug and self-righteous. The crazy part is that almost everyone around him keeps falling for his nice guy act. How? Are we watching the same person? Dan-shim visits Shin-sori's grandmother to prepare for the upcoming interview that she has because her manager tells her that she needs a tragic backstory to pull on the heartstrings of the viewers to kind of make her seem more relatable or something like that. So she visits the grandmother to find out more about Shin-sori as a person. So grandma explains that Shin-sori had a serious accident when she was younger and became very sick afterward. Then everything takes a turn. A group of gangsters storms into the restaurant demanding grandma sell her property. They're aggressive, they're abrasive, and something interesting. In a scene like that happens, I was going to say before this, but actually happens in between, is where Chairman Cha and Mun-do are in the car on the way back from that resort opening. The important thing that I want to mention is that Chairman Cha mentioned that Mun-do has been trying to acquire Grandma's location. Grandma seems to constantly be refusing to do it. Like, this guy sent a bunch of random thugs, gangster dudes, to intimidate this poor old lady that stays by herself. That's crazy. So Dan-shim realizes no one is going to protect Grandma, so she's going to stand up for Grandma. She proceeds to fight all of these gangsters, every single one of them. Then Se-gye arrives just in time to help finish everything off. Now let's get into a side quest. Grandpa. So earlier in the episode, Dan-shim unknowingly meets Chairman Cha, or Se-gye's grandfather, at a restaurant. The place was completely full and Grandpa couldn't find a seat. Dan-shim agrees to let him sit with her, but only if he pays for the meal. The exchange was so cute, honestly. I wasn't expecting to enjoy those scenes as much as I did, but I gave that context because they meet each other again in the aftermath of this fight. And this is where Grandpa, or Chairman Cha, realizes that Se-gye knows Shinsori, or Dan-shim. I think this solidifies possibly in Grandpa's head that, oh, this is Se-gye's quote-unquote girl. After the fight, Se-gye tells Dan-shim that the puppy has already returned to its owner, and she's just relieved it found a real home. But then, things get a little weird. When Dan-shim finally goes back inside to check on Grandma and clean up, Grandma says, "Who are you?" Dan-shim doesn't know how to answer this. Instead, we just see her leaving the grandma's house. As if the day wasn't already stressful enough, Mun-do shows up outside Grandma's restaurant. Instead of threatening Dan-shim directly, he does something even creepier. He encourages her to get closer to Se-gye, to stay by his side. Underneath his fake smile, he makes it very clear that if she refuses what he wants her to do, that both she and Grandma could suffer the consequences. And this takes us back to the past, where he was the king, where we see that Dan-shim then got attached to a similar looking puppy in the past. But then she learns that the king hunts wild animals. And this leads to Dan-shim chasing away the puppy she's grown attached to. But later, he serves her what's heavily implied to be dog meat. He says he killed a wild animal by the garden. The entire thing was very horrifying. Now in the present, Mun-do is once again trying to manipulate Dan-shim for his own selfish plans. The difference this time is Dan-shim sees right through him. The only question is, why doesn't she tell Se-gye? I understand they haven't known each other for very long, but considering everything Mun-do has already done, it feels like telling Se-gye would be the smartest move. Maybe she's trying to protect him, or maybe she doesn't fully trust him yet. Either way, I'm really curious to see where this goes. Throughout this episode, it keeps getting mentioned that Dan-shim doesn't understand love. She doesn't understand romance. She literally has to look it up. And this made me feel very sad for her. It tells us just how lonely her life has been. And later that night, after leaving Grandma, she's sitting alone on the rooftop crying, convinced that nobody has ever loved her unconditionally. And while she is crying, Se-gye comes up behind her. It seems he just came to check on her. And in the middle of the scene between them, we get a quick shot of Mun-do outside the building, smiling after noticing Se-gye's car parked outside Dan-shim's apartment building. Se-gye and Dan-shim finally have like a real conversation. He apologizes for misunderstanding her letter. He thought she was just confessing her feelings. She thought he was simply one of her fans. It was really just one big misunderstanding caused by, as I mentioned earlier, Dan-shim trying to understand modern expressions. But then she says something that really stuck with me. She tells Se-gye she's tired of mistaking his kindness for genuine affection. If he doesn't actually care about her, then he should stop giving her hope. Normally, we would see Se-gye get defensive, but instead he doesn't argue, he doesn't deny it. He allows her to hug him so that she knows how he really feels. And I loved this scene. It had just the right amount of tension without rushing the romance that's developing between the two. You can really feel both of them lowering their emotional walls. Overall, I thought episode 4 did a great job of slowing things down just enough to let the characters breathe a little bit. We got some genuinely funny moments with the puppy and all the romantic misunderstandings, but underneath all of that, Mun-do's manipulation continues to grow more dangerous. You see that he's no longer just attacking Se-gye's business, now he's targeting the people Se-gye cares about. And that's a whole different level of scary. As for Se-gye and Dan-shim, their relationship is finally starting to blossom, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Dan-shim should have told Se-gye about Mun-do's threats, or do you think she's right to keep it to herself for now? If you enjoyed both the recaps of episode 3 and episode 4, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in episode 5. And maybe 6. Peace.